China opens up its borders and expects a surge in COVID cases. Amid rising pressure from China, Taiwan extends its compulsory military service. Industrial profits in China fell by 3.6% from a year earlier. Days of China's rapid growth might be over. While the rest of the world has resumed a normal life and had international borders open for at least the past year or so, China has just now emerged from a self-imposed global isolation and has opened its borders. CCP has said that it will no longer subject inbound travelers to quarantine starting from the 8th of January. People arriving in China will just have to obtain a negative COVID test within 48 hours of arrival, contrary to 5 days of isolation in a designated quarantine hotel or the central quarantine facility, followed by 3 days at home. The government said it will provide visas for all purposes, from business to leisure. It also stated that outbound tourism, which almost dwindled to nothing, will also resume in an orderly fashion. The restriction on international flights pertaining to the number of flights and the number of passengers per flight will also be removed. The CCP also downgraded the management of COVID, which essentially means they removed the legal justification to bring back the draconian zero COVID restrictions. In saying so, the National Health Commission added that they will be monitoring the virus's spread and vowed to take appropriate measures to suppress the peak of COVID outbreaks. In a statement, Liang Wannian, a senior health official overseeing China's COVID response throughout the pandemic, said in an interview with People's Daily, "Our priority now needs to change from preventing and controlling infection to treatment, intending to ensure the health, prevent severe disease, and enabling a stable, orderly transition as we adjust our COVID response." Although I have my reservations when it comes to Chinese officials monitoring the virus spread and suppressing the outbreak, as the CCP has said they can't track the number of COVID cases because they have shut down mandatory mass testing, they also have outright refused to share data on the number of severe cases and deaths, going as far as to change the criteria for COVID deaths. These are critical statistics that help other countries take decisions on how to deal with the COVID outbreak in the future. Plus, they also refuse to vaccinate their population with a vaccine that has better efficacy than the ones natively produced in China. This is particularly bad, as experts say that in early to mid-January, China is expected to see an exponential increase in COVID cases. Although this is a blessing in disguise for the CCP, which will inevitably pin the increase in cases on the foreign travelers to hide their incompetence as they always do. The CCP has taken some steps to aid COVID situation though, as the quarantine centers that they built to imprison all the people with a red health code will now be turned into ICUs, bringing the number of ICU beds up to 10.6 per 10,000 from 4 per 10,000, according to Zhao Yaowei, a senior NHC official overseeing hospitals, which is still low, but a step in the right direction. The Health Commission also said China will enhance the treatment of severe patients by boosting the supply of life-saving medical devices, such as ventilators. But coming back to the reopening of the border, within half an hour of Monday's notice, data from travel site Trip.com, cited in Chinese media, showed searches for popular destinations had increased tenfold. In addition, Chinese travel agency Qunar saw flight inquiries on its website increase sevenfold within the first 15 minutes after the announcement, the China Daily reports. Some people are happy, while some express concern. Rachel Liu, a resident of Shanghai, said, "I'm happy about it, but also speechless. If we're doing this, reopening, anyway, why did I have to suffer all the daily COVID tests and lockdowns this year?" She also said that after the lockdowns ended, nearly everyone in her family has fallen sick, including her parents, grandparents, and partner, living across 3 different cities in Xi'an, Shanghai, and Hangzhou, who had all come down with fever last week. Like the Chinese citizens, I too have mixed reactions to this news. On one hand, I am happy that the people are getting their freedom back, while on the other hand, I can't get rid of the nagging feeling that the country is ill-prepared for a step like this. While the citizens of China can enjoy some modicum of freedom, the CCP is not making life much easier for the citizens of Taiwan. The Chinese military has sent 71 planes and 7 ships toward the self-ruled island. This makes the largest incursion by Beijing in Taiwan so far. This is the CCP's form of protest against what it calls collusion and provocation by the US and Taiwan. In a statement by the Taiwanese Defense Ministry, it said that 47 of the 71 planes crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait, which is the unofficial boundary that was once accepted by both sides. But as we have seen on multiple occasions with Taiwan, India, Bhutan, and multiple other countries, any form of agreement has no value in the CCP's eyes, and they will violate it any chance they get. Among these planes were 18 J-16 fighter jets, 11 J-1 fighters, 6 Su-30 fighters, and drones. The Defense Ministry said they monitored the movement of these Chinese aircraft through land and Navy vessel-based missile defense systems. China said on 25 December that it had conducted joint combat readiness patrols and joint firepower strike drills in the sea and airspace around the self-ruled island. The People's Liberation Army said the drills were a firm response to the current U.S.-Taiwan escalation and provocation. They refrained from mentioning the nature of the alleged provocation, though it is very clear to see that it was a temper tantrum thrown by Xi and his goons on the recently approved U.S. defense spending bill. China objects to U.S. support for Taiwan. Although the U.S. has no formal diplomatic ties with Taiwan, it remains the island's most important international backer and arms supplier, which has been a constant irritant to Beijing. Due to an increasingly hostile China, ruled by an unstable megalomaniac president-dictator, Taiwan had to take a few steps to ensure the country is better prepared for these reckless acts by its neighbor. This comes in the form of an extension to its compulsory military service from its current 4 months to a year, starting from the year 2024. Speaking after a national security meeting President Tsai Ing-wen had called to discuss reinforcing the island's civil defense, she said Taiwan wanted peace but needed to be able to defend itself. She added, "As long as Taiwan is strong enough, it will be the home of democracy and freedom all over the world, and it will not become a battlefield," but also said that this decision was incredibly difficult. She went on to say that the current military system, including training reservists, is inefficient and insufficient to cope with China's rising military threat, especially if it launched a rapid attack on the island. Taiwan has always known that it will have to prepare for potential military action from China since the end of the Chinese Civil War in 1949, when its government fled the island. Since then, there have been 3 close encounters between the 1950s and 1990s, but now China's intimidation and threats against Taiwan are getting more obvious, and a military confrontation appears to be closer than ever. And Taiwan might become the battlefield between democracy and dictatorship. To prepare for this, conscripts will undergo more intense training, including shooting exercises, combat instruction used by American forces, and operating more powerful weapons, including Stinger anti-aircraft missiles and anti-tank missiles. Beijing heavily criticized Washington for its new U.S. defense spending bill, which, with military support earmarked for Taiwan, amplified a China threat narrative, according to China's foreign ministry. The ministry said in a statement that the defense bill severely affects peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, but I think it is Xi and the CCP and their delusions that adversely affect the peace in the region, and the U.S. was forced to take this decision only because of the increasingly hostile Chinese government. While China was hell-bent on disturbing world peace, it has more pressing issues inside its borders. The days of China's rapid economic growth are over, and it is currently experiencing a slump in industrial profits. Due to the strict lockdowns previously in place and disputes with factory workers while supply chains have been deeply affected. Compared to the previous year, industrial profits fell 3.6% in the January to November period to 7.7 trillion yuan, which is around $1.11 trillion, according to the data released by the National Bureau of Statistics, which is a 3.0% drop from the previous year. Although since these stats are released by the CCP, so they are hardly reliable. Despite Beijing dishing some of the toughest lockdown restrictions in early December, but the economy is still expected to struggle for a few months, as a significant amount of people are expected to get infected and will be unable to work as they recover. A survey showed that China has fallen to its lowest level in terms of business confidence since 2013, due to the CCP's mismanagement of the pandemic and the irrationally long duration of lockdowns. Things were not made better by the protests, especially the one at the Foxconn factory, which made Apple reconsider staying in China. As we speak, Apple is looking to invest in countries like Vietnam and India and has already set up factories and supply chains. China's economic growth was just 3% in the first 3 quarters of this year and is expected to stay around that rate for the full year, one of its worst years in almost half a century. At this year's Central Economic Work Conference, top leaders and policymakers pledged adjustments to the policy to support the slowing economy. But with businesses having anticipated a global recession in 2023 and the effect of a surge in domestic COVID infections, analysts say it may take a few more months before things start looking up for the economy. JP Morgan analysts said China's domestic reopening, which came earlier and faster than expected, would mean a shorter period of transitional pain in the first quarter of 2023, followed by an above-trend sustained recovery from the second quarter. Dan Wang, chief economist at Hong Seng Bank China, said, "There is still a shortage of labor in the services sector in the big cities, and the loss of productivity is quite obvious." He also added, "That situation won't improve significantly before Chinese New Year, and the rebound isn't happening simultaneously, but city by city." Ordinary Chinese and travel agencies say a return to anything like normal will take months, given worries about COVID and more careful spending because of the impact of the pandemic. Well, that's all for today. If you liked the video and want to see more like it, be sure to press the subscribe button and ring the notifications while you are at it to stay updated on news about China. If you enjoyed the video, please press the like button and share the video. It helps us with the algorithm. And if you have any inputs or criticism, let us know in the comments section below. Until next time, thank you for watching, and goodbye.